for our Food as Medicine discussion series. I'm Charles Platkin, the founder and director of the Center for Food as Medicine. The Center for Food as Medicine is an international nonprofit dedicated to bridging the gap between traditional medicine and the use of food as medicine in the prevention and treatment of disease. Please visit foodmedcenter.org and sign up for our free weekly news and research digest, which comes out each Tuesday at 2:30 p.m. and has more than 160,000 subscribers. We're privileged to have a distinguished panel of experts with us today to discuss a critical topic, dietary supplements. Our esteemed panelists include Dr. Peter Cohen, who is an associate professor at Harvard Medical School and an internist at the Harvard-affiliated Cambridge Health Alliance. Dr. Stefan Pasiakos, who is the director of the National Institutes of Health Office of Dietary Supplements, and Dr. Cara Welch, the director of the Office of Dietary Supplement Programs at the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. We're deeply grateful to our panelists for taking the time out of their busy schedules to join us today. Given that we have a limited time to discuss what could be several years worth of topics, I'd like to jump right in. To kick off our discussion, let's start with a fundamental and foundational question. What exactly is a dietary supplement, and how does that compare to terms like nutraceuticals, nutritional supplements, food supplements, health supplements, green powders, dietary aids, dietary enhancements, vitamin and mineral supplements, and so on and so on and so on? I'll leave that open to the panel. And one more thing before I start. Stefan, did I get your name correct at that time?
Close. Almost.
Okay, I'll go for close. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, let's start off with that question.
All right, thanks, Charles. It's really nice to be here this morning, and I will go ahead and jump in and start with what is a dietary supplement. And to be clear, I recognize sort of the difference, right? There's what a consumer perceives as a dietary supplement. From the FDA's perspective, there is a definition of dietary supplement in the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. So when my office is looking at a product, what we are looking for is, does it meet the statutory definition? So a dietary supplement is a product that is ingested. It has to be swallowed like food. But it has to contain a dietary ingredient, at least one. Usually they contain dozens. It has to be intended to supplement the diet. And I think that's an important distinction there. It is not food. And so a lot of the other things that you listed are sort of on a spectrum, is how I see it. There's a dietary supplement, which would be, vitamin, mineral, maybe a botanical supplement, amino acids, to supplement the diet. On the other end of the spectrum would be conventional food. And so in a perfect world, there would be some separation between these types of products. But I think in today's world, if you go look at the marketplace, I think these commodities are coming a little closer together on that spectrum. And what we're seeing are some of the other products that you mentioned, like a dietary aid, a dietary enhancement, a functional food. Those usually will fall somewhere between a traditional food that we eat every day and a dietary supplement. And I think part of what FDA is doing here is trying to ensure that when we are looking at products, we are regulating them the way they are intended to be. We often talk about consumers should not be replacing their conventional food or their diet with dietary supplements. They are, of course, supplementing that diet.
Anything else to add by anybody? Okay. So I want to.
Well, Charles, I'll jump in here because I think that from a consumer perspective, at least my patient's perspective, I really think that the perception of these products is on a different continuum. And that would be it's something to maintain our health, improve our health, and it's a pill, powder, ingested, as Cara said. So from my patient's perspective, it's really a continuum that's goes from prescription medications, over-the-counter drugs, and then dietary supplements. So these are pills and powders to enhance our health. And my patients are not taking them necessarily very infrequently because they're thinking they're missing some sort of specific thing in their diet. Much more frequently on this other health spectrum of taking a pill and powder to improve your health.
And I would tend to agree with that too. Just looking at, I've been a journalist for 25 years and written books on these topics, and I have to tell you, that's the way consumers are seeing them from my perspective, and also in the news that we do, digest that I do, I'm pulling headlines right from national well-respected media outlets plus scientific journals, and that's what I'm seeing as the headlines. So that's what people are seeing because that's what they're reading about this supplement offering this benefit and this piece of research, regardless of what the research was, industry's funded study, low impact journal, no citations, whatever it is. If the media gets a hold of it, looks at it, and I guess I'm feeding into that because when they see a study in my research digest, they think that I've approved that study, which is not true. So, and the media gets my news there. So I think that what happens is that yes, it gets blown up in the press, it gets blown up into your patient's hands. That's something that can solve a problem, a health problem, maybe even better than a potential pharma product. Thoughts on that?
I mean, I think that's absolutely the intent behind the commodity as it was defined as the product category, right? When Congress passed the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act in 1994, that was the goal, to support and maintain a healthy lifestyle. It also gave a nod to, disease prevention or leading a healthy lifestyle. Again, I think these are maybe two sides of the same coin. But I think it's really important to keep in mind how dietary supplement, how the regulation of dietary supplement fits in with how they are being used, because the way the regulatory system is set up, they are not set up as pharmaceutical drugs. I know everyone on this panel is very aware of this, as well as our audience, but this all sort of fits together, right? A dietary supplement does not have the same pre-market review aspects to it, so we don't have insight into the efficacy of it. It also does not have the same manufacturing requirements, and then even the post-market surveillance. None of that is really the same as pharmaceuticals. So, and I understand that's how folks may be perceiving dietary supplements and even taking them, but I think it is important to keep in mind the how far we should really be using supplements. They are a category of foods, and that's how they're regulated, and that's really how, from FDA's perspective, we want them to be treated as, again, a category of foods supplementing the diet. If we're getting too close into preventing, treating, or curing diseases, our system just is not set up to ensure that the safety and the efficacy of the products for that type of use.
So I just want to, and then we'll go right to you, Peter. But this whole idea, so because I'm not sure that everybody in the audience understands this pre-market approval system versus doesn't understand that. So considering the limitations of this is from the Dietary Supplement Health Education Act, is that correct? Of 1994. Again, I'm no expert here. Okay.
Yes, yeah, that was sort of the foundational law, and it amended the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. There have been other amendments in the last 30 years. But that sort of defined the category and laid out the basics of the regulatory system.
Can you just say for the audience what a pre-market approval system is versus just so we can get that we do not have for dietary supplements.
Right. So I'm gonna speak more about what dietary supplements have. The requirements they have, but FDA does not approve dietary supplements. So there's no FDA approved supplement out there. That construct does not exist. We have limited pre-market review. We review the safety of certain new ingredients, not all of them. So the majority of my office's involvement in dietary supplement regulation is after a product is on the market. This is according to your question, this is sort of in contrast to, the drug construct. So a pharmaceutical drug, of course, has extensive pre-market review for safety and efficacy, right? We talk about the risk-benefit analysis, and FDA approves pharmaceuticals. For OTC medicines, it's slightly different, but again, there's sort of the monograph that they have to meet, and that has been approved as generally recognized as safe and effective. That's not the construct for dietary supplements. So sort of shifting over to what dietary supplements do have, we have limited pre-market review on the safety of certain ingredients, and that's really the extent of our pre-market involvement. There are extensive manufacturing requirements. We call them good manufacturing practices, or GMPs. Extensive labeling requirements. A dietary supplement label has to include all of the ingredients, the amounts of those ingredients, and they are allowed a number of health-related claims, which sort of nods to what both you, Charles, and Peter were saying on the intent, how consumers perceive dietary supplements. There's a lot of health-related claims. But a lot of our involvement has to do with the manufacturing requirements, labeling, making sure the claims are not giving the impression of treating, curing, or preventing disease, and then post-market surveillance reports. So are there adverse event reports? Are there health-related adverse event reports submitted for products? Do we understand the safety of the products post-market?
So when does a complaint go? If I got sick, I think we all know, or at least on this panel know, about what happened in Japan recently, where I think 5 people, I don't know the data exactly, but I think 5 people killed and at least 100 were hospitalized from a dietary supplement. And they have a pretty strict system. So can anybody talk about what happened there? And then what I wanted to ask you is, what happens when there is an adverse event, and where do they go to? So those are 2 questions, and I don't say both of them, but certainly the adverse event, where it goes to, and then if someone else could pick up with, how did this Japanese system break down, even though it's supposed to be a better system, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I don't know too many of the details, but my understanding of the problem in Japan was that there was some sort of it was a red yeast rice product, as I understand it, and there was a contaminant that should not have been in the product at all. So that's what the current working hypothesis is, I think, from the public officials. So that really points to a breakdown in the manufacturing, either the oversight of the manufacturing process, or some other issue with manufacturing, the regulation of it. Actually, in Japan, Charles, I'm not sure that they would agree with you, the Japanese public health officials, that they have a stronger system. My understanding is that I think they're currently in the process of rethinking about how to strengthen the system, and actually looking to us, to the U.S. and to SHEA, to try to figure out what moves could be made. But it's a very active conversation right now in Japan as they try to sort out what to do to prevent this kind of tragedy in the future.
And then, Cara, I had asked you a specific question, who are you reporting to an adverse event?
Yeah, and so, sorry, just one note on the issue in Japan. According to our records, that product is not in the U.S. marketplace. And I think that relationship between different countries is really important. So when something comes up, it is important that we keep good relationships with our international counterparts so we can follow up. And I think the system worked really well. We were, in short order, fairly confident that product had not entered the U.S. marketplace. It was a product only intended for Japan, or at least not intended for the United States. So adverse event reporting is such an important part of our regulation of dietary supplements. I'm really glad that you touched on this, because getting an idea of how a product is in the marketplace and how consumers are reacting to the product is so important. Obviously, we try to do everything we can on the front end, and I'm sure manufacturers of dietary supplements are also ensuring their product is safe beforehand, but things can go wrong. And so having a sort of feedback mechanism is very important to the FDA. There is a requirement for brand owners for dietary supplements to report serious adverse events to the FDA. That was a requirement that came about in the mid 2000s, about 2006. And it's the same level of adverse event reporting required for OTC medicines. And so that is really helpful.
So I just want to, I don't mean to be interrupted, but I do want to clarify for audience, because it's hard when you're not in a live venue. So for pharmaceutical companies, it's the same type of adverse reporting back to the pharmaceutical company if there's an adverse event, correct? They have adverse reporting hotlines, I believe, correct?
Yes, it is the same type of report. So different product categories have different reporting requirements. Non-prescription medicine, non-prescription drugs, and dietary supplements, they are required to report serious adverse events to the FDA. But medical professionals, consumers, concerned citizens, anyone else can always report adverse events, and that is really important to us. Because we have a couple of physicians on the phone, I will just say, reports that come from physicians are often very comprehensive. We really appreciate them when they come in. One adverse event report, if it gives us a full picture, can be enough that we can follow up on an adverse event, maybe talk to the company. In the past, a single adverse event has turned into, removing dangerous product from the market. Sometimes you need more than one adverse event to get a full picture of what's happening, but ensuring that we have sort of that open line of communication with consumers, healthcare professionals, and of course the brand owners is so important. So we always encourage submission of adverse event reports.
Charles, I wanted to jump in there about something you said, because I think it's good to unpack a little bit.
Yes.
You mentioned that the system is the same for prescription drugs and dietary supplements. And I guess that's might be accurate in the sense that what's the case for dietary supplements also applies to prescription drugs. But it doesn't, that comparison is like a very small part of what's going into detecting adverse events from prescription drugs. Very, very small part. So to remember here, we have with prescription drugs, we're going to have a lot of human studies that are carefully done and vetted by the FDA and publicly available. And these are diving deeply into the adverse events, not just of the active agent in the prescription drug, but actually the formulation too. So when it comes to dietary supplements, remember, like Cara mentioned, these are introduced to human consumption. And there could be zero study ever in a human of that manufactured version or that combination of ingredients from that factory given to a human. It could be never published. So we're talking about a situation where, from a dietary supplement perspective, you could be flying completely blind in terms of Cara's ability to even know where to look for signals or what signals to look for, versus prescription drugs, where we have extensive amount of research about that drug or that over-the-counter drug prior to it being consumed by humans.
Yeah, and I just want to lay something else on top of that, which is that it's a lot of self-reporting. It's reporting to the company, and I did a study on airline water and contamination in 2019, and it was a self-reporting to join EPA, FAA, and they can change the results beforehand. Do they or don't they? Well, there's no oversight. So, it's one of these things where we're fixing it anyway. So what do we have to do this for? We'll just do this.
Right. Right. And Charles,
I'm not saying bad in everybody, but, companies don't have the best reputations, and also health supplement companies don't have as much risk on the line as dietary risk. The dietary supplement companies are the same amount of risk or investment that a product that's made it through the FDA gets is investing sometimes hundreds of millions and billions, so they have more at stake to comply.
Yeah, but Charles, even if we're dealing with, and there's many examples of highly ethical supplement companies that are reporting 100% accurately, the thing is that when it comes to pharmaceutical drugs, that's not a system that's very useful to detect harm, just like what the company happens to hear from consumers or patients or doctors even. How most medication harms are detected are in large studies, large database analysis of everyone on Medicare who's been prescribed a medication, and then is there an excess number of cases of pancreatitis or hepatitis, inflammation of the liver, inflammation of the pancreas in that database. That's how usually medication harms are detected. Well, with dietary supplements, since we don't even know how many of the product are being sold, this is proprietary information by the companies, and who's getting it, and we don't have access to their medical records. All of that in terms of what we would call pharmacoepidemiology, detecting harm from drugs or supplements, is really not possible with dietary supplements.
So, I hear that, and then I think to myself, okay, well, to me, the first thing I think of, which is what I originally thought about, is that there should be more government funding for that are not industry funded studies, but there should be more government studies on high use dietary supplements. Now you say we can't ensure what the ingredients is, which is another topic that we could talk about. But let's assume that we have established a baseline for that all the ingredients are the same. Now I believe there should be government funded studies for the high impact, highly used dietary supplements to track those and do prospective studies and see what's happening and see if there are significant adverse events and things like that. Am I off base? I'm making this up as I go along, but just, you three are the experts, but just let me know if I'm even on target.
I mean, I think just to be clear, more research is always going to be a fantastic thing. And I think having support behind the safety of these products, how they interact. I think another complexity to layer on top of what Peter explained is dietary supplements are quite complex products, right? We're talking about multiple active ingredients, dozens at times active ingredients, and how they fit together is so important. Pharmaceutical is often one or two active ingredients and then inactive excipients. And just to sort of throw out there, when the dietary supplement, when DSHEA was passed 30 years ago, obviously FDA has responsibility to regulate the product commodity. Our sister office in NIH, Office of Dietary Supplements, was also created with DSHEA, specifically looking at research and advising on the benefits of dietary supplements. So I think we thankfully have sort of a wonderful office that sort of focuses on research and ensuring good research behind dietary supplements.
Yeah, Charles, if I can just weigh in, I think the general comment that more research is needed, we can throw that against any issue.
I know that, but I just feel like dietary supplements do get a short shrift. And I've always felt that was probably not that there was some secret thing we're missing, but more of the adverse events and more of the this preliminary observational. More research needs to be done on the bottom of probably 3,000 studies that I've seen in the last. I'm researching something for a book, and over 3,000 studies, probably 70% of them said more research needs to be done in this specific area. They were all really
I do agree with you in the sense that longitudinal trials assessing adverse events and tracking that over time is probably a good investment. But there are also a lot of other good acute, more short-term trials that can get at some of those answers as well. I think it's important to recognize that there is quite a bit of research being done on dietary supplements, quite a bit. Not all of it is supported by my office, but there's quite a bit funded by NIH and throughout industry as well. And some of that's very good science, but ensuring that the right questions are being asked is really something that we need to make sure that we prioritize in collaboration with our academic partners and other organizations to make sure that we are actually asking the right questions. And you raise an important one. If adverse events are the most popular used dietary supplements in a longitudinal trial, perhaps that's an area that we need to go. There have been studies like that, maybe not necessarily answering the exact questions that you pose, but certainly I think conversations like this are important for us to really make sure we are doing the right work, because we don't have endless resources to do the work. So it's important that we actually prioritize those funds to do the best possible work for the public.
Yeah, no, I agree. Sorry, Peter.
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback on what Stefan's saying, that there's another issue to think about with this, is that I completely agree with Stefan, of course, and he's the research expert here. that so much good research is going on. The challenge here is that the availability of the commercial products, the actual and Cara was referencing this as well, the actual quality of those products might have really very little to do with those high quality products or ingredients that are being given in the research setting. So we also have this big disconnect, and that's again a big difference between prescription drugs over the counter drugs. It's exactly the same product that's given in the study that your doctor's prescribing for you. Here we have a situation where the study might be this perfect version of vitamin C, perfect dose, perfectly manufactured with the perfect excipients. But then you're purchasing a product that has vitamin C listed on the label, completely legally, but it has honestly, and other than that, has very little to do with what the research subjects got in the study.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, I have two questions. One for you, Cara. What would happen how would it take place if dietary supplements were to have more stringent regulations? You have to have a lot more in your budget, right? So how that's not to be an act of Congress? Would that have to be? Is that something the FDA director could decide, or how would that work?
So I think it depends what we're looking to do. There are absolutely some steps that FDA can take through our own authorities. We do have programmatic priorities, right? We are sort of advancing guidance documents on certain topics. If we want to establish or adjust the requirements, the regulations, we have the authority to do that. There's a process. I will say FDA has publicly discussed some important modernizations that we feel would be effective for our regulation of dietary supplements. And the two that we have advanced would require legislative change. So we have put forward our proposal for a product listing requirement that would require every dietary supplement to be listed with the FDA. It's like a registration. There would be no approval mechanism, though, before it is listed. And that would allow us really important insight into what is the marketplace, sort of the breadth of the marketplace, how does it look today, and then over time, how does it change? Are ingredients becoming more or less popular? How are formulations changing? We would want, as part of that listing, all the ingredients and the amounts of every ingredient. And so we have put forward that. I believe you mentioned earlier about a pre-approval, and that's a
Congress, or would that be an act of Congress?
Absolutely, that would require an act of Congress. Yes, and to be clear, FDA is not proposing that. I think that would be a very big paradigm change, and that would really adjust from FDA's perspective how we handle the marketplace. I guess depending on how it's done, it could kill the marketplace, because sort of shifting today to a pre-approval would be quite difficult.
Yeah, and by the way, as I said right before we went on air, I said that before I thought, oh, the FDA should be regulating this, and then I was like, well, why? And I thought it was where I went to get a prescription yesterday that really should be over the counter, and like, why am I having to go to a pharmacist? I'm not going to say what it is, but why do I have to go to a pharmacist for this? I mean, I worked in a pharmacy when I was in high school. I know what they know, and there's no reason why this needs to be. And I just thought to myself, and we want to do, and I'm advocating for doing that with dietary supplements. That's the dumbest thing I ever thought of. So, I really, I think there needs to be more regulation, but I have no idea what kind of more regulation. I don't. I mean, I would certainly like every ingredient or label to say what's in it has to be what's in it, or you're in trouble, right? Somehow. But I'm sure there's more things that you have come across your desk that you say, hey, I wish you were regulating this or not. I just don't have that insight yet.
Yeah, and I think the statutory authorities that were laid out for dietary supplements provide a really good base for a healthy and well-regulated marketplace. But I think there are improvements that could be made. And like I said, this is something we have been talking about for a number of years. But to be clear, FDA is not the only voice here. I've already mentioned, of course, it would require legislative change. So obviously our legislators But I think it's really important to have, regulated industry as part of the conversation, healthcare professionals as part of the conversation, our consumer advocacy groups bring a really important perspective as well. We need to make sure the statutory authorities work, obviously, for the regulator and for regulated industry, but most importantly, it needs to work for consumers. We need to have a strong, well-regulated marketplace.
Yeah, and then Stefan, this is for you. So how can the NIH Office of Dietary Supplements play a more active role? And I kind of like this question in bridging the gap between research findings and regulatory actions concerning the safety and efficacy of dietary supplements, and how can ODS collaborate more effectively with the FDA to ensure that the research informs the regulatory decision-making process?
Yeah, well, first off, I do think we collaborate quite effectively now and have for a number of years. I think the best thing we could do is maintain transparency and continue to make sure we share the evidence base with the FDA to make sure they have what they need. There are a lot of things in place already where we, effectively communicate. We have a number of resources that are available to help inform the public as well as share evidence with FDA. We have, similar to what Cara was mentioning in terms of a registry or a database, we have similar resources available online now for the public and for academics and for health professionals to actually access and see what's on the market today. There can be changes to those or improvements, but we certainly are doing our part right now. And I would say the best thing we can do is make sure that we fund the best possible research so that the evidence that we provide to FDA and that we can share is based on the best science.
And then, we all know that there's a plethora of social media claims, being made out there, and the whole story seems to be that we're hiding, who's we? The government, physicians, healthcare industry is hiding these key supplement. The pharma industry is sort of squashing, these great drugs that can help, not drugs, but great dietary supplements that can help you. And this is the question I wrote. Social media and influencer marketing have become powerful tools for promoting dietary supplements. What are the potential benefits or risks for these platforms, and how can regulations be made to make sure that the claims on social media are more accurate, transparent, and not misleading to consumers? And I'm not sure where that would fall under. Is it an FTC? Are they connected to the organization? How would you ever find the fingerprints? Or that they're connected to the organization, they're making health claims on behalf of that organization as a social media influencer. It's just, again, it's confusing, but, I tell this story, and my wife and daughter, well, my wife cringes, but I came home and I saw them, and they're both very intelligent, and I saw them using chlorophyll, for acne, saying it gives them better skin. And I just thought to myself, here I am, I've been in this space as a journalist, as a lawyer, as a professor and a researcher. They didn't ask me. They got it from TikTok, and I just thought, oh my goodness, if they're doing this, not even behind my back, but just going out and being influenced like that on something that's dangerous. I wonder what the general public is doing,
Charles, I'd like to connect that question, which I'll be really interested in Cara's answer about how to regulate that space, to your earlier points, because I think about how it should be regulated. I think fundamentally people are going to talk, the social influencers are going to promote certain things. People are going to hear from word of mouth. It's going to be consumed. So I think from a regulatory perspective, it's what everyone was talking about before. What's the goals of that regulatory framework? And I would say the goals should be, number one, access. Americans should be able to access vitamins, minerals, probiotics, you name it, without any hassle. The second thing is quality of the products, as you've mentioned, making sure that when you're taking something, it's accurately labeled. It's not just, though, that it contains the ingredient, that it's manufactured in a proper way. Let's say you want to take echinacea for whatever reason. It should be manufactured, in my opinion, in a traditional way that's consistent with how you want to use it. And you should be able to be assured that that's the case. And thirdly, safety. I think where we need to really beef up the system is make sure that the detection system and the FDA's ability to act once they do detect something is much stronger than it is today. Then we can worry about, it's less worrisome, let's say, about social media. If we can be assured that people we're adults. Consumers are adults. They should be able to ingest whatever they want to, but they should know what they're ingesting, and they should know that there's no risk to that ingestion. Then we can let the social media networks sort of continue on as it certainly will.
So I think influencers is something I never thought I would be talking as much about influencers as I do in my given day. But I think it's a really interesting evolution of how the marketplace has changed. So in 1994, when dietary supplements sort of defined and the regulation was established, the internet either didn't exist or was within a few months of existing. So it was written pre-internet and pre, internet as a retail distribution channel. But also as a marketing channel. And so it is definitely something FDA is looking at. And you mentioned the Federal Trade Commission, you are absolutely right. So a lot of marketing is advertising, and that's where FDA and FTC's authorities match up. So FDA is in charge of the label and the labeling on the product. So how the product is positioned. FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, looks at the advertising about the claims. And so we, similar to our other government agencies, we have a good working relationship with FTC. We have a memorandum of understanding. We do meet periodically to partner where we can, and in other places sort of divide. And if FTC is able to take to follow up on something, maybe FDA does not. Or if our interests align, we partner. But I think that, communication with the public is something that everyone is sort of reevaluating. And to be blunt, I think this is something that the government is dealing with, and we are looking carefully, right? FDA is trying to figure out how to better communicate with consumers. We really want to make sure they have the information they need to make a good decision about the product.
About what, Cara? What are they translating to
Well, I think it's important that they understand from FDA's perspective what is acceptable for dietary supplements, what is not acceptable. We need to figure out how to communicate with them so they can make decisions about the products that they want to take in a responsible manner.
I don't know if you're allowed to make an opinion on this, but I'll put it out there anyway. Do you think there should be a mark on every label that says this has not been FDA approved? Does it say?
There kind of already is. There is a disclaimer that says FDA has not evaluated this claim.
Yes, on every dietary supplement has it. So that's interesting, and I wasn't even aware of it. Right. So
it's not actually every dietary supplement.
It's everyone with a certain type of claim. Yes.
But the other thing is that there's been several studies looking at the effect of claims on consumer understanding and decisions, and it turns out that as the claims appear on labels, the social science research is that it doesn't influence consumer understanding of the product. If something says that it's going to support your immune system, whether or not it says in small letters that the FDA has not approved this claim or approved the supplement, does not influence consumers' understanding of that statement. So this is important to understand that. The disclaimer is there, but it does seem to work.
So how do you sorry for interrupting you. So how do you get how as a supplement company, how are you able to say this affects your immune function? How are you able to make that claim? Or this is for this will help you with cognitive you'll think better, or your memory will improve your memory, or any of those kinds of things.
So I mentioned there's a number of health-related claims that brands can make, and the requirement is that it be truthful and accurate, which I realize does not answer all of your question. And again, that's something where the Federal Trade Commission and FDA try to partner up where we can. The Federal Trade Commission has a health products compliance guide. I may have misread the name, but and that sort of lays out what they believe is important to support a claim, a health-related claim. And then from FDA's perspective, a firm has to notify us of the claim that they're making. But an important distinction they don't have to give us that substantiation. So FDA has no mechanism to review the support behind their claims. We are sort of going on their word that they have the information to support it.
Right. I'm just looking up. Doesn't your office, Stefan, doesn't it provide some very great resources on these types of claims and so forth? I mean, I know it does. I mean, I've seen the data.
Yeah. So Charles, I want to echo a couple of things that were mentioned here. So Peter mentioned, the quality of the product, making sure people are aware of what's in the product, and they can make the best possible informed decision that they can use. But the important aspect there is that in the context of social media, we also have to play a role in making sure that we can inform the public. And that gets right to your point on all the resources that our office has, and not just our office. There are other offices or centers here at NIH and FDA that put out information about dietary supplements, that discuss the role of dietary supplements in health. We have a whole list of, I would say, dietary supplement fact sheets, or also information pages that can really give the public what they need. And those are heavily accessed. I think the most important aspect is making sure that the information is getting to the right aspects of the population, the right subgroups of the population who will use dietary supplements the most. Are they using that information effectively to inform their decisions? If they're not, then we need to change course to make sure that we put the right information forward. We're continually evaluating what we put out. And another thing is making sure that we explore different routes of communication. I don't know if everyone is accessing the NIH website to look at our NIH fact sheets. There has to be other routes of dissemination, and that includes collaboration with practitioners, local communities, and making sure that they have access to that information. It may not just be through web access, it could be through community partnerships as well. So I think there's a lot of different things that we can do. But you're right, there is a whole slew of things on our website that can explain what dietary supplements may or may not do. And you have that up there right now with the ashwagandha. This is a new one of ours right here.
So
I just want to give
helpful perspective. I mean, this is amazing. Look, I'm not here to be your cheerleader. I just, I find, this is I assume this is incredibly well researched and thought through, and I would like to see sources for this on here. But it's excellent.
Charles,
I'll let Peter say something. I want to jump in after that. Go ahead, Peter.
Okay, yeah, Stefan, I just want to give you a shout out for that. For what you're describing, that's exactly where I send all my patients who want to take dietary supplements. Is to
FDA does too.
Okay, great. So so that's that's the gold standard. And here's my solution when I talk to my patients about this challenge. The challenge that Cara's just describing, that you just have to take the industry's word for the structure function claims, but then you have all this research, that's well done, and that the NIH has beautifully compiled. So what I recommend to my patients is that you turn to Stefan's work, you turn to that for your evidence. Then when you turn to purchase that, make sure you're purchasing a dietary supplement that simply has the ingredient listed that you're looking for without any claims. Because what I can trust is that, and we'll talk later about how to figure out manufacturing quality of the supplement, but if I'm more comfortable with purchasing ashwagandha that's not making health claims or structure function claims. And that's what I recommend to my patients, how to choose the supplements wisely.
Yeah, and a couple of things to add on those fact sheets. First of all, I'm not going to take credit for them. It's my team. They do an amazing job of putting together those fact sheets. And the important thing there is that we're always updating them. So if there's changes to the literature that really say, okay, we really need to make sure the public is aware of that, we change them. Those fact sheets are continually updated. We post when those are being updated, and we make sure that the public has the most up-to-date information. And they're available to consumers in a consumer version, healthcare professional version. In some cases, they're translated to Spanish. And there's, that's a very important resource for the public. And again, I'm glad people are using those effectively. I think they're one of our most valuable tools we use to actually inform the public. Yes, we fund research, but the bottom line is making sure that the public has information available to make good decisions. And that's the kind of information that we put out that is really used by the public, because they're not going to be reading journal articles every day. So it's really making sure that we put that information into a usable format for the public.
And that's, I think, really important. It's just that I do feel Now, this is something that, the food as medicine concept, and by the way, I didn't start this center because there was a wave of food as medicine going on. My real purpose of this food as medicine center was to bridge the gap between, allopathic traditional medicine and food and dietary supplements as a way to prevent and treat disease along with pharma and along with all kinds of other medical advice, right? Not just, oh, we should take a dietary supplement and pharma is horrible. That's not the purpose of the center. The center is to try to understand the things and sort of bring to the attention of what your office is doing and so forth. So the concept of food as medicine, now everything is being relabeled food as medicine. And now I think more than ever, and I haven't seen the numbers, how many more people are taking supplements. I know athletes, will swear by it. I generally don't come in contact with a lot of athletes, but for some reason, I've met two top NFL players and been friendly with them, former NFL players, and they talk to me about supplements, and they act like I'm supposed to be an expert in it, which I'm not, on every supplement, and they seem to be though, with mixed science and pseudoscience and inaccuracies. And I just think, gosh, these are, their body's a machine. They're being paid, a fortune to make sure everything's right. And they're swearing by some of these products that, when I look at the research, I'm not seeing the same thing that they are because they haven't seen it. But, and I just wonder, like, okay, it seems like a hodgepodge to me. I'm just being honest. It just seems like a hodgepodge. Like it's all over the place. Yes, you're telling your informed patients, Peter, to go to that website, and I find it because I'm good and skilled in research and so forth, but I just don't see it, as being the mainstream. That, at least, with my nose to the ground, I still feel like it's a hodgepodge out there, and everybody's trying to make claims and secret claims, and like the social media. And I'm just wondering, how do we, better create a better system so that there is more transparency, there is more information out there for the public, and it becomes a primary mission, not a secondary or tertiary mission.
Yeah, I mean, I think that incentives are set up in a dysfunctional way right now. Incentives for a supplement company are going to be set up to take shortcuts in manufacturing, have a less expensive product, and promote it heavily on social media. That's great to maximize sales. And incentives are to exaggerate the health claims that you can make with that, or imagine health claims that aren't even there. Put those on there, and then, like Cara said, that the FDA is trusting the manufacturers that they're putting accurate health claims on there. So these kind of incentives drives the market, in my opinion, to lower and lower quality things that are heavily promoted with misleading or flat out false information, and the manufacturing gets worse. Obviously, there's a huge ethical, high quality part of the industry, and maybe we should talk a little bit at some point about how to tap that as a consumer. But much of the industry is driven by these incentives that I think are very unfortunate.
Well, I do want to get back to that question, about how consumers can do better and health professionals can do better, because I think that's really important, because there's a lot of health professionals that are listening to me on this webinar. So I think we need to give some advice out, but I also want to throw something else in the mix. I think that it's going to get worse, because I think that with AI and personalized nutrition programming, and I know this because my wife, my family is my sort of anecdotal test case for everything, tells me that there's perfumes now that you can, that they'll ask you a series of questions and they'll create a perfume that's just perfect for you, like literally the most perfect perfume. I thought, what a brilliant marketing thing, but I'm sure it doesn't work. But I thought, like, this is going to happen, and it already is happening with nutritional supplements, right? You'll take a quiz, you'll go to some scan place and get scanned, and then you'll know the exact supplement that should be designed for you. And that, I think, will become a worse situation than a better situation. Harder to monitor, harder to watch, harder to understand, mixed ingredients levels, and all kinds of things like that. So now I think, in the remaining, because we will end at 10:30, it's 10:19. so what do we do? How can we do better? And what should we be asking of government officials to get Dr. Welch more funding? To do what with it? What do we want our representatives getting more funding to regulate this? What do we want to ask for? We don't even. I wouldn't even know what to ask for.
So I'm not going to touch on that last part.
Yeah.
But I do think there's been a few things that I just want to follow up on. The concept of food as medicine, and I understand that. I'm sort of coming at it from dietary supplements. I know consumers are really looking at sort of their self-care regimen and how their diet fits into it, but also how their supplements fit into it. And I think that that certainly comes from a good place. At FDA, we really encourage folks to speak with their healthcare professional as they're sort of building their self-care regimen, how supplements fit into that, which ones are important for them. I think personalized nutrition, which I sort of interpreted what you were talking about, is certainly sort of, maybe it's just the development of the American way, right? We just want to do it bigger and do it better. I have some hesitations on personalized nutrition for a few different reasons. One, it really quickly sort of lends itself to a diagnostic and then a treatment plan. Again, supplements just are not set up for that. And we need to be very careful how we are looking and perceiving supplements. They should not be treating things. They should be part of, again, leading a healthy lifestyle. They also can have some manufacturing aspects. And I think it sort of lends itself to then sort of a personalized supplement for yourself, right? I can then order my supplement to have exactly the levels that I want. And not to get too detailed here, but that makes the GMP or the good manufacturing practices trickier. And I have some hesitation with the idea of that. And I just really hope the manufacturers are keeping in mind all the different ways that could be difficult. We do want to make sure the products are what they say they are, and not anything else, right? And so
there's a whole other layer, Cara, which is that things can be manufactured anywhere in the world now, and drop shipped immediately to the U.S. in a very, very easy format. So it's a whole other layer that so many of our systems design old school and not thinking along those lines. So again, with the remaining time, Peter, I know you have thoughts about, not to put you on the spot, but I guess I am. I know you have a vision of a better system. I've listened and watched your tape and your research and how you think, and I'd like to hear and what is that better system?
Yes. So going back to the goals of making sure consumers have access to vitamins, minerals, probiotics, traditional botanicals, easy access without any providers being involved, making sure those are well manufactured and are also safe. So how could we do that? Well, I think the first, the foundational first step is what Cara mentioned earlier, which the FDA has been asking for and her office has been asking for, which is a registry, a listing of all the products that are sold. However, my concern is that if we just have a listing, and that's what's currently proposed, so I'm not an advocate of the current legislation that's out there. The current legislation that's out there suggests that a manufacturer submits their material to Cara, she posts it up on the FDA's website, and everyone's good to go. I think that is going to be further misleading to consumers, because instead of just reading these structure function claims, for example, these health claims on a label, now you can turn to the FDA's own website and see those same claims on the FDA's website. And I think that's going to give a false impression that Cara's team has vetted those claims, which we've heard from her is clearly not the case. So how could it be that foundation might be useful to take us to a next useful step? Well, I think a few things. I think that the FDA, Cara's team, should be permitted to read the label that's submitted to her before she posted on her site. So in other words, if there's ingredients in there that are not legal dietary ingredients, that doesn't appear on the FDA's website anywhere. And she can respond to the manufacturer saying these are not legitimate dietary ingredients. I also think Cara should have the power and authority, if a new law were to be passed with this registration, to immediately remove products that her team finds to be dangerous, adulterated, or mislabeled. And I think if Cara was sitting there in the office with a big red button that she could press every time that she had the information from her team that there was one of those problems and it dropped off the list, I think that would be a great incentive to the industry. Now, none of this honestly would be more than a lot of paperwork for the FDA if there wasn't a way to have the tire meet the road when we're purchasing supplements. So we would need to tie this in. Possibly, let's say you submit your label, the manufacturer submits the label to Cara, she gives a QR code to the manufacturer. Now that QR code needs to be available wherever the supplement's sold, online, in stores. It needs to be scanned as the consumer is going out. And at the time of scanning, checking out, that QR code needs to reflect a product that's still on Cara's list. Now, if you have that kind of system, Cara can read the label before she puts it on. She has a big red button to eliminate dangerous, adulterated, and mislabeled products. And the consumer knows immediately if Cara is on Cara's list or not. Now we're talking about a product access to all legitimately made supplements and something that consumers can tap into that information, but they don't have to do any research. You don't have to be the small percentage of motivated consumers who's reading Stefan's work. Everyone's going to know that this is on the FDA's site and it's in the database. So those kind of changes based on the foundation of the labeling law is where I think we should be going.
And thank you for that. That was great. And Stefan, so for you, I'm not asking you the question. I'm just asking you if you think this is a good idea. I think you should have a huge marketing budget to market the database that you currently have. I mean, as big as a national company, to market the database so that people can make better informed decisions given the market size of dietary supplements and nutraceuticals. That's what I think. Tell me if I'm wrong, I'm off base, it's not necessary.
Well, I'll let you go advocate to get us a bigger budget for marketing. But I mean, I think we do a pretty good job of getting the information out there. That dietary supplement label database is obviously not what's called out in the 22 legislation, but it's something. And it does have a listing of, I think it's 185,000 plus products at this point. You know, some of the issues might be that we don't take off dietary supplements once they're off market, and we could have an issue where different lots are being uploaded, and there's some things that we could probably do better, but it's a good starting point. I don't know about marketing. I don't know if we're going to be out there marketing these things, but they are available. And if you want to push for more funding for NIH, go ahead.
It would be nice to also know, like, for them to fund you to have a market report of what the penetration is to that market, like a traditional company or organization, like knowing how frequently the database is used, what the demographics are. I'm sure you have some of that.
Yeah. So we do track some of that information. Since I've gotten on board, I've dug into this a little bit more, and I want to know more about the actual details rather than just access to our databases. Like what information is being used. I know is it the information being put out there the best possible way, the demographics of who's using it. All of that's important because I think that can inform, I would say, the next generation of informing the public.
Of course, and also transparency. Like, what are the top 20, dietary supplements that are being searched on your website?
Well, we have that, and we have that in the sense of even with our fact sheets, we know what are most heavily accessed, and it should be no surprise that vitamin D and calcium are really up at the top. But we can also dig in that to some of the analytics and some of our other databases as well. But I think getting more into the weeds there might be important to really make sure that we're doing it right. And, we're going to be looking into that in the future.
Yeah, that's amazing. Cara, I'm still not sure what we would do if you were able to get as much budget as you possibly wanted with dietary supplements. You had an infinite amount of budget. It's Cara, you're amazing. You do amazing work. We're going to give you a blank check. What are we doing with dietary supplements? Within the power, I understand you're in a high power position at the FDA, and you're limited to what you can and can't say, but within that range.
Yeah, and I appreciate the viewpoints. Again, I said before, right, these different perspectives are really important to have in mind. From the FDA's perspective, we do feel some modernizations would be important, but I think really digging into the resources that are already available to us will bring us, certainly forward. We rely heavily on the Dietary Supplement Label database. The DSLD is something we absolutely use. Trying not to skew Stefan's metrics here, but right now that is the best picture we have of the marketplace, which we are responsible for regulating. I think there's a lot that could be done, but really appreciate the opportunity like this platform to talk about the dietary supplement marketplace, the advantages, but also sort of looking into how it could be better, how we could end up with a stronger and well-regulated marketplace. So thank you, Charles. I appreciate this morning.
Great. Well, thank you for that. So I just got an email saying that my audio is too low, as usual. That's what the person said. But thank you for that, because I did get a new microphone and I am trying to make my audio better. Anyway, I want to thank the three of you for coming today. I hope that was painless, and hopefully we'll be willing to come back again to answer some of the other questions. And I really appreciate you taking time. And these seminars are free to the public. We don't pay anybody to be on them. And we do them as a public service. So I appreciate you understanding that and taking time to do it. I'll leave you with this. Please, tune into foodmedcenter.org and sign up for our newsletter. I think you'll be, happy that you did. And scanning those studies and headlines every week, you'll have a different perspective. And I'll leave you with this. While diet has the potential to cause or prevent disease, it also has the powerful tool for treating disease and building, maintaining, and restoring health. So always consider that when you're making your choices. So thank you, everybody. Have a very, very wonderful week. And again, my guests, thank you so much for your transparency, and I appreciate it.
Thanks, Charles.